I've started a bit of a debate around builders with their deposits when it comes to construction work, refurbishment work. If you're a client and you're being faced with this situation where you're being asked to pay a deposit to a contractor, you don't really understand what that's for, why a person would need a deposit, what your security is around that deposit, if at all, what it's for, why they expect it. And also, if you're a client and you're thinking, should I be paying this thing or not? Or if you're a contractor, what type of things the deposit is for? I want to go discuss this thing, and there is, before I get into this, let's be clear, there's no right or wrong answer to this at all. Do me a favor, if you've got a question about this topic at all, pop it into the chat box. I've got a list of questions that when I first started here. So first one that came in was from Jason, and he said, as I'm only just going out on my own, I'm not in the position where I can pay for or use accounts to supply materials, so I have to ask for a deposit. So this is a situation, in my opinion, that the builder can get around by asking the client to pay for the materials. You could pay the supplier, pay the manufacturer, pay the person providing materials. You could pay those, ask the client to pay them direct, if that's your position that you're in, and if your client is showing you some resistance around paying that deposit over to you. They may not want to do that. They may feel a bit exposed. They may feel like they don't want to pay it. It may actually lose you the sale as well. So really do think about whether we're going to get our ego up and say deposit or no deposit, no work, which will be the ego taking over, or we look at some sales skills and look to how we can work this thing together by asking your customer to pay your suppliers direct, if you're in that situation. Next one. Liam says, never ever pay a builder up front. Payment schedules are put in place at set target points and agree with the customer before we start. And that's a great point and a great share. Never upfront payment. Now, Liam, if that's your position, then that's your position. I'm not here to say whether either is right or wrong. You must just be wholly aware of the risks if you're the customer here. If you're the customer here, in what could possibly happen by you paying over a deposit. Now, if you're paying over a deposit to a contractor, I would be wanting things like, what is it? I'd be asking questions like, what is it for? Like, what security do I have that this is going towards the thing that you say it is, or is it going to finish off your last job? And also, by the way, let me just jump into my own background as well, actually, before I get into any more of these points. Over my career, I've done both, and it's only right that I'm open and honest about that. So when I first started out, I took deposits. I was taught by my business coach that was the right thing to do. And I took deposits. And if I'm being honest, when I look back, me taking those deposits were to help me finish the job prior. And I'm okay sharing that. Then I went through a phase of doing really, really well in business. And when I started to do well, I stopped taking the deposits because I didn't feel like I needed to. And then I had a bit of a lull in business and sales started to drop off. And when sales started to drop off, I started to take deposits again. So all I can share openly and honestly right now is that during my time, my need for a deposit or my need for no deposit has largely been around my feelings of success in the business as it stood in that moment. I was talking about, largely where my business was doing well, deposits weren't needed. I didn't feel the need to cash flow the previous project because I was doing well. So I guess as I look back and reflect on those times, that the need for a deposit was largely geared around my own cash flow in business. So what does that tell me? Well, that tells me that in my world, that if I'm asking for a deposit, it's a flag to myself that maybe I need to look at cash flow. Maybe I've got an influx problem. Now, because I'm looking at myself in that way, I'm likely thinking that about others. Life is a mirror and all of that. Now, if somebody's asking me for a deposit in a project, I'm going to think that about them as well, because of that's how I've operated. And I only know that now after looking back and analysing myself and my business's cash flow. We've got one over on this phone. I take deposits. I've done jobs where I didn't take a deposit, so I've lost money from materials. It's a great share. I'm having to zoom in because I have my glasses on. Mark. Yeah, it's a great point. This is for on the builder's side of things. When a builder is insistent upon a deposit, there's a lot of risk for the builder as well to take on a job with no deposit in place. Because what does that mean? Well, it means they could be lumbered with a bunch of materials that they've bought for your specific job. And I often hear when this comes up, well, you can just take the gear back. Well, that comes at a cost too. So even at let's use something really readily available. Off the top of my head, let's go plastering. So you book a guy in for some plastering. Let's say there's £5 worth of plastering, and he goes and buys £2 worth of gear. And the £2 worth of gear is ordered. It's the guy goes and orders it from the merchants. No, he doesn't have to pay for it at that moment in time. He doesn't know. But by you paying a deposit of, let's say, I don't know, 600 quid on that as an example, just over 10%. I said £5 grand, didn't I? Yeah, so just over 10%. Now, if that 600 quid deposit comes in for you, the counter argument might be, well, if I don't go ahead, they can just take the gear back. But if by cancelling that order's cost them money in the travel, the back and forth with the merchants, it's also going to cost money in now that day's work that was planned in and scheduled in is now cancelled. So I do understand builders' position taking a deposit to book time in the diary because they want that security that the income is going to come in. The counter to that is we pay a deposit up front, we never see them again. Of course, this happens. For me, I do see a lot of people sharing stories of builder ripped off such and such for 10, 15, 90, 100. I saw one 130 grand the other day. And there was someone real famous, got done for hundreds of thousands. I think it was, now then, who was it? It wasn't Conor McGregor, it was the old boxer. Oh, now then, who was it? Prince Nazim. He got had over by a building contractor in, I think it was Manchester. He bought a cinema, he was turning it into houses, lost a lot of money by not managing his milestone payments, not managing his payment terms and his cash flow on his project. So you've got to be really careful. And as I keep saying, there is no right or wrong answer to this live here. You're going to have people that this discussion is like, do you want tea or coffee? Like nobody has something in the middle. You either have a tea or you're a coffee. And it's the same with this. And this is going to change as well. You're going to be 1 minute you're going to be needing a deposit. 1 minute you're not asked. 1 minute you're going to be no deposits ever. I'm never paying a deposit again. It's going to be based on your own experience. So going back to what I was saying, seeing all these stories in the press, like we're only ever going to see a horror story. That's what the news is. That's what the press is. That's what the media does. So it picks out these horror stories and it will publish them, quite rightly so, raises awareness. I get it. So there may be someone that's being done. Let's just say that there's someone done this morning, 50K. This as then gets shared on social media, one project. How many other projects across the UK are happening in that moment in time that are going well? And we never hear about those, do we? So I'm just offering here a further objective view in that one project that's gone sideways is not all projects. It's not all builders, it's not all contractors. This is a very balanced view. It's a very balanced topic that needs more discussion than just should you pay yes or no. It's much, much deeper than that. Let me just get into some, if there's been any questions over on the phone. I do not have a real problem with a deposit, just the large ones where the builder is not finished. Mate, that's a great point. Yeah, I haven't touched that. So what is the value of the deposit? That's another topic to get into. Is it a percentage of the revenue? For me, if you're going to pay a deposit, here's my number one piece of advice. And this is the only piece of advice I'm going to give you outside of this as a discussion. The deposit should be, I'm not going to say must be, because this is just advice, not direction, but it should be apportioned or valued at pre-start spend and a relative amount of time booked in diary, for say. So let's say we're going to book in, it's a project that's going to start in 4 weeks' time, and there's £5 worth of pre-start spend on steel, kitchen supply, might get some windows manufactured, and some paperwork to do and some consultancy work, structural engineer maybe, all that stuff. Like if all that came to 5K, I would be comfortable, and as a builder now, I'd be comfortable and be able to justify and present the reasons why that 5K deposit exists. Now, if that was part of a 100K job, like I see lots of folks saying it's a 50% deposit. Like there's no way on God's green earth, once again, this is not advice, this is just me personally, that I'd be paying 50 grand deposit. Not a fucking chance. Like most building work is delivered at between 20 and 30% profit. Now, that would mean that all the job's profits being paid at the beginning and then some before nothing's been done. So again, only my opinion and only my advice. And if like you've got any comments, you've got any thoughts on any of this I'm talking about, whether on this phone, or this screen here, just shoot them into the chat box and I'll come over to them. Too many builders run out of money before they get to the end. That's my problem. Great point, mate. Lots of builders are very poor at cash flow management. Can only agree. But also, mate, we've also got to say that lots of them are good too. We've got to always, like, there's two sides to every coin. There's two sides to every story. You know, we only ever hear the horror stories, as I said just earlier. Cash accounts only now. I put materials on credit account at Sydenham's. I'm guessing that's a merchant's. And the client didn't pay. Fucking hell. So the client ran up your account and then didn't pay. Lesson there for you, I think. Look at Carillion Loss Maker. Yeah, Carillion, a good example. The only thing I do is make awareness. I cannot accommodate all circumstances. Yeah, of course. That's what we're all doing, right? We're all raising awareness. That's all we can do. One in the live chat. I've bought a lot of materials before without taking a deposit, and the customer ghosted me, resulting in me sat with 2K of oak stair parts. Yeah, for me, mate, oak stair parts we're talking something bespoke there. I'd absolutely be taking not only a deposit, I'd be taking payment in full for that up front, or I would be asking them to pay the supplier direct. Let's get into some more of these. Got loads of them. I would say no to a deposit. Steve says, I would say no generally, but there may be some exceptions for supply of bespoke materials, which you just, Dave in the live chat there has just mentioned. It's a great point. If something is bespoke or not, it shouldn't be down to any builder to fund someone else's project, regardless of account times with suppliers. So that is another follow-up comment to the one Steve shared, and this is from Carl. Carl says, why is it just that bespoke's an exception? It shouldn't be down to a builder to fund someone else's project, regardless of account terms with suppliers. I agree with that to a degree. That's not very good English, is it? I agree with that to a degree. So why should it be down to a builder to fund someone else's project? Well, quite simply, my opinion on that as a comment is this. There is no other service-based business that I can think of off the top of my head right now that gets paid in advance. So let's go car mechanic. You pay for the car when it's fixed when you pick it up. Your shopping you pay for at the till once it's all in the basket. Your meal at the restaurant, you go have your meal and you pay at the end once you're satisfied. Like, I don't know why. I don't understand why contractors want to be paid up front and then think that's okay, and also use shit analogies like supermarkets, fucking holidays. Like, who pays for the holiday when they get back? Like, you pay before you go, right? And a product service-based business like construction work, you aren't going to pay. That would be paid for upon completion. In my opinion, anyone paying building, this is something I would never do, and I do. In fact, somebody commented this the other day. I'll come back to it. I would never pay for building work up front. Absolutely not a fucking chance in the world. No matter how much I trusted the guy, no matter how much I trusted that they would do what they said they would, even if it was a family member, I still wouldn't do that. Reason being, I haven't got the result yet. That would be like going into local restaurant near here that we love called the Hope and Anchor. It would be like going in the Hope and Anchor and saying, well, 4 burgers, 4 fish and chips, I'm paying there and then, and not paying at the end. I would be paying at the end. If they want some sort of deposit up front, which would be weird, but if they wanted some sort of deposit up front so that I don't do a runner, then, I'd be probably open to it. But let me share something that somebody put in the chat. I did not know this about this particular supplier. I believe it was, I'll find it somewhere. I believe it was Porcelanosa, the tile showroom people. I'm pretty sure someone said that they had to pay for it all up front. I can't find it right now. I'm sure it was in the comments somewhere, pages of them, that Porcelanosa had charged this guy all of it up front. So you had to pay the whole thing up front, which I found a bit weird for a company of that size. And I also don't get it. They're a national, in fact, are they global? Have I seen them abroad? I think I have. Help me out if they're abroad, just pop it into the box. A company of that size, why would they want paying up front in full like that? Like, you would think that someone like that would be after the fact, given that they install as well. I didn't know that about them. Let me just come back over here. Just a couple more things coming. Okay. Anything on a 10K, I charge 50%. 50% of the revenue, mate, yeah? Under 30K, I charge 20%, and then stage payments above 30K, 15% and staged. Interesting. And again, mate, I'm not here to tell anybody that they're right or wrong. I'm here to debate this topic, share views, get other people's opinions. If that's what you do, mate, that's what you do. It's not a bad thing for the clients to buy all the materials 7 to 10 days before the start. I totally agree. There'll be a lot of contractors out there, Graham, that have got poor cash flow management or poor liquid assets to be paid, liquidity to pay for materials up front, that they would actually be grateful for that. If they're going to do an extension and the customer says, look, I'll get all the gear, I'm just going to pay you for your labor, some contractors are going to be happy with that, but others aren't, because some contractors want to profit from the gear, which I also understand. You was all for deposits 6 months ago because we clashed a few times. It wasn't 6 months ago, mate. It'll be a couple of years now since I stopped taking deposits, longer than that. But yeah, as I said right at the very beginning, my opinion has changed. Well, it's not my opinion. My approach is what's changed to taking deposits or not. And for the record, I've never clashed with you. We're always going to be, what's the word? I'm always open for debate. I'm always here to hear other sides of stories and other perspectives, and I hope that you are too. I don't think it should be a message that anyone should be saying ever. I don't think anybody should be saying never, ever, ever pay a builder a deposit, or I don't think that anybody should be saying you should always, always, always pay a builder a deposit. And giving that as advice, because it is my firm belief that there are different builders, there are different perspectives, there are different situations that people find themselves in, and each case is on its own merit. You could have a great, in fact, I know one builder that's working for me right now, actually. I paid him a deposit because I know I can trust him. He's a great human being, and I know his cash flow management's absolutely fucking dog shit. I know it is. But if he wants me to work with him to get my job over the line, and he can't work for me without a deposit, then I'm going to meet him halfway in the middle, or we're going to have a discussion around what needs to happen for him to come work for me, because he's great at what he does. But it's just his business skills, his business acumen and management is shit. And I'm not prepared to lose a good builder, as in product and service delivery, rather than a business manager, just because of some poor or ill-advised advice that is received on the internet. That's for deposits. Yeah, as I say, like I've changed my approach to this topic a few times. I said it at the beginning, but in case you missed it, I'll just run over it again. Like, whether I've decided to take a deposit from a customer or not has been largely the decision has been made because of my current business position or my cash flow position, and when I've been felt tight up against it, or maybe like there's more going out than there is coming in, maybe the next job I've reached out and said, look, can I get a deposit off you? And I know that I've done that as I look back. At the time, you don't feel that. At the time, you just feel desperate to get the cash in, and you do what you do to get the cash in to keep you afloat. There's been times where the business has been flush, and we've got excess. We're totally in front cash flow. When that happens, I believe that it's in them situations where I've gone, I don't need to take a deposit this time. I'm okay. And if there's any resistance with the client, I can go ahead anyway. And I think it's important to understand as you look at yourself, let me use that thinking that I've got there onto a person that's always saying never ever ever pay a deposit. Now, a person that's saying never ever ever pay a deposit, what they're saying is that they don't need one. And if they don't need one, that implies that they're doing well. And that's fucking awesome. However, not all of the other contractors in the industry are the same. And you've got to recognize that, I'm afraid. They're not all untrustworthy bastards either. You've got to also recognize that. Yes, we're going to hear horror stories. There's going to be people in the chat giving horror stories and sharing their shitty experiences. But we can't use that same fucking thing, that same problem, that same shitty experience and apply that to everyone, because that's grossly unfair. Now, for a successful builder, Graham, I can see it on this phone, I know that you're doing well. I know you're doing big volume. I know you're doing big numbers in sales. And I know that because you've got so much work going on, your cash flow is going to be in a strong position. So therefore, you don't need to take a deposit. And this is not about wanting to. This is about needing to. If you needed to, that would be different. If you were shit at business and you were shit at cash flow management, then you would need to, because if you didn't, then you'd go bump. And that's the long and short of it. So rather than don't pay a builder a deposit, I think the message should be, if I am going to pay a builder a deposit, what can I do to protect myself? What security measures can I put in place to make sure that this motherfucker's not going to do a runaway with my money? What other things can I do to still work with this guy to make sure he doesn't run off? How can I protect myself? What can I put in place to secure this contractor to come work for me without paying a deposit? What else can I put in place? It might not just be money. He might genuinely need some money to finish the last job to get onto your job. And do you know what? That's up to you on balance, whether you want this guy or not, whether you should do that or not. But I don't think it should be a blanket stop, boof, don't do it. I don't think that's correct. Over here, so I paid trades and builders in stages. Last HMO I did, cost for a refurb cost me 160k, all in, paid in stage payments and completed milestones. Abdul, fair play. That's awesome, mate. Escrow account is a good idea to protect both. Dave, such a fucking amazing share that. And I can't tell you the amount of times I've actually tried to get one of those. I tried with Barclays and they said no. And I tried with, I'm going back some time now. It used to be Midland Bank. I think that's now HSBC. I forget what it's now become. I think Midland is now HSBC. But when it was Midland, I tried them as well. And they were having none of it. And they never gave me a reason why. Just something we don't do. I'm going back a few years now. It might be more readily available, which would be good. I take deposits on every job to cover the first month, then stage payments after that. I won't fund anyone's project or wait 30 days. If a large company you work for goes bump, then I'm still liable for everything. I'm okay work-wise and cash flow is okay. It's a risk to my business that I'm not looking to take. Mate, great share that, Carl. And I think what you've summed up there is most contractors' fear around not taking one. And these are the reasons why you take one, and I think these are reasons why most folk take one, to be fair. It's, you're protecting yourself. I totally get it. Honestly, I do. I think the whole deposit discussion goes away if there's more trust between client and contractor and client. If that trust relationship was unequivocal, this live would not even be happening, because it wouldn't be a topic. Again, look at any other industry. When you take your car into a garage, you take your car into a garage and you just trust that when you pick it up, it's fixed. And you pay the money and it's all done. Car garages don't take deposits. To my knowledge, I don't think I've ever paid one. Same with a restaurant. You just trust that that meal's going to be great at the end and you pay for it at the end. And I think I think the whole deposit thing comes about is purely because of this lack of trust in the industry. And the lack of trust in the industry is fueled by the fucking media. It really is. let's jump back over here. So we got, have you looked at trade shake contract? This would help both parties. Yeah, mate, there's many forms of contract out there. I'm not really a fan of these ones that have just been created as phone apps. I just stick on JCT. I think it's nice and simple, industry standard. It's, it's recognised in the court of law in England and Wales. So like any form of contract is a form of contract, but let's just talk what's this? Go that one. Let's talk. Let's get into the question. This could help both parties. Yes, it could. Here's my issue with contracts at large. Contracts are going to protect both parties. That's why they're there. But the fucking courts and the system in this land, when you need to administer or you need to execute or call upon or make claim to or gives rise to the contract being brought forth to execute something in it, that's where the fucking problem is. I remember I had to, is sue the right word? Yeah, I had to take a client to court. They was refusing to pay me a part of a variation that was part of a project that was instructed in writing. It was in the contract, blah, blah, blah. Everything was belt and braces. Took them to court and I won the award. It was only $2,000, but it was fucking principal. So I took this person to court for $2,000 and I won. That process from them saying I'm not paying you until my award was 18 months. 18 fucking months. Like, that's a joke, that is. So contracts are there to secure, but the time period that then comes after is an absolute fucking ball ache, and that is something that needs to change. I also don't believe that there should be any mechanic where anybody can just, I've got a debt here, fuck it, I'll fold my business and then just start again the next day as something else. I don't think that should be allowed either. That trust cannot happen when homeowners are getting people off rated sites. Yeah, mate, and you know what? The rated sites have got questions to answer as well, I think. They definitely have. When I first started in business, I was a member of Checker Trade, and I often tell this story on my training courses because it's great. I didn't know this. I was sat at home. I was a pisshead at the time. And I was sat at home watching that show, Lethal Weapon. When Lethal Weapon was a series, and it had the lad with the long hair in it. I can't remember his name. He had long hair and a mustache. It was a great series. Anyway, and that series was sponsored by Checker Trade. And you used to get the jingle on the adverts, checkertrade.com, that little jingly tune. And I was just starting my business, thought, I'm going to join that. So pissed up, I sent them an email. Want to join Checker Trade, didn't know how much it was or anything. Anyway, next day, this guy rings me and he says, I've got your application to join Checker Trade. How much do you want to be making from it? And we shared some numbers and stuff. And he said, well, the fee for joining for a year is 80 quid a month. And that's how much it was back then. Someone told me the other day, it's like 150 now, nearly doubled. So it's 80 quid a month. And I went, yeah, sounds good, sign me up. And he said, well, we've got to do some due diligence on you first. And I had no idea what that looked like. And I thought, like, what is it going to be? He said, have you got any certificates for your trade? And I'm a trained bricklayer. That was the only formal certification that I had. I said, yeah, I've got City and Guilds Advanced Craft Brickwork. And he said, right, I'm going to come and have a look at it. And I thought, what? He said, I'll be there tomorrow. And I thought he was pulling my pisser. Anyway, sure enough, next day, this bloke from Checker Trade came to my house. Knocks on the door. He said, I'm from Checker Trade. I'm here to check out your certificates. He checked my certificates, my insurance, my trading history. He asked me for 3 clients' phone numbers out of my phone on the spot, live, right there and then, which I gave him, and I know I shouldn't have done. And he rang these clients to find out, to talk about me as a business owner. What else did he fucking check? He checked something else. Oh, there was some work at my own house. Can I come and see some work on your home that you've done? And I showed him around, and I was really, actually, after the fact, I was really impressed that he'd done that. I don't know if they still do this. Probably not. I'm going back, 8 years now. So I don't know if they still do this. They might do. I'd love to know from anybody that's experienced joining Checker Trade if that's still a thing. That would be awesome. One of my best mates got bumped for 180k, fucking hell, from Carillion. Yeah, put him out of business. Of course, it's going to 180 grand. It's going to finish anybody. Should have done a money claim online and then raise it to High Court. Then they have to pay. It was a money claim online, mate. If you're talking about the 2K story I was telling you about, that's what it was. But eventually, it just took so long. It was during COVID as well, though. To be fair, then raise it to the High Court. They have to pay. MCOL, for anyone who's listening, that covers you up to, I think it's 10 grand, or has it gone up to 15 now? Maybe 15k, 10 or 15k. They don't check anymore, but Assured does checks for windows and doors. Oh, right, okay, nice. Bobby Davidson says, it depends on the client and the size of the job. Yeah, I mean, how can you assess? Again, we're just debating this. How can we assess whether a client is going to go ahead with the project or not on that first visit in your sales process? That will be a really difficult thing to do. Size of the job, is that relevant? I guess it is, in that the longer the job, the bigger the risk you take when you don't take a deposit. Whereas if it's a shorter period, the risk is reduced, and then maybe you don't need to. Again, debate, no right or wrong. Lisa Cruz says, I take a 50% deposit and then progress payments with the remaining 10% due on completion. I also take 100% of product costs, never had any complaints, and projects delivered on time and less variations. I think that's a great approach. The only thing that I would be resistant to, if I was just meeting Lisa for the first time in this comment, would be the 50% deposit. I mean, there's no reference to revenue here, so that could be, if it's £1 million job, is she asking for 500 grand up front? That, just not going to happen. But I don't know what Lisa does. Maybe it's just a plasterer. Maybe she's just a plasterer. I don't know. Say just a plasterer. I don't mean just a plasterer. I mean, I'm talking project size. Progress payments through the job, and then remaining 10% due on completion. Yeah. Other than the deposit, I'm kind of okay with that. My thoughts are that so Graham Hall says, my thoughts are, as long as the builder and the client are both clear and both understand payment terms before agreeing, then there's no right or wrong way. That is fucking the best comment that we had, I think. And that is that there's no right or wrong way, because there isn't. There is no right or wrong way. Please do not listen to anybody being bullheadedly saying never pay anyone a deposit ever in any situation, because that's bad advice. Also, on the polar opposite of that, never listen to anyone saying always, always, always pay a builder a deposit. And don't listen to always, always, always pay for your projects up front, because that's also bad advice. Everybody's got to take, every client has to take every builder on their own merit, on their own gut feeling, on their own information that's in front of them. Because if we go out there, all of you clients that are listening to this right now, if you as clients all go out there with the attitude's probably the wrong word, with the approach of never, ever, ever pay a builder a deposit, that would put so many businesses out of business. That's the fucking truth of it. And if that happened, and then good contractors that are shit at managing cash flow then go bump because they can't function, then we are going to reduce the supply of contractors in this country. And what happens when we reduce supply? Demand goes up. When reduced supply, demand goes up, so does price. And that is what will happen. That would happen to the economy if this became a thing. If this got into one of the government manifestos that builders are banned from taking deposits, this country's fucking development market is fucked, because that's what will happen. I'll guarantee you that right now. I put on all my quotations, all building materials belong to Pinnacle and paid for in full. Graham, that's not actually legally binding or true. Once building materials have been installed and deemed to have been installed, they then belong to the customer, whether they've paid for them or not. If you were to remove them after the fact, whether they've paid or not, that would be deemed criminal damage. Access to the property will be granted at any time when client signs. Yeah, that's well, they need access to be working there. Over to this screen, we've got my builder asked for a 20% deposit and progress payment with the last 10% on completion. Plus, I think that's a very pragmatic approach. That when I did take a deposit back in the day, that was my approach as well. I also provided a very detailed specification and took quotes of reputable companies. Fantastic, mate. I like your approach. We could possibly work together, whether you're a client or a builder, because I like that. It's nice and simple and succinct. I like how you've kept that simple. I'd love to know what your thought processes are when contractors are coming down. You said you've quotes with reputable companies. Like, what is it that makes the red flag go up when when a quote comes in and we go, I'm not going to pay this guy a deposit. Like, what is it that's happening inside? There's obviously a feeling going off that makes us feel that resistance as to pay that deposit or not go ahead with it. Dave says, oh, Michael, love your content. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. Dave says, I'm part of the FMB. So for those that don't know, that's the Federation of Master Builders, who are, by the way, I'll be careful what I say here. So the FMB are another version of Checker Trade. My issue with the FMB is the name that they've used implies something different. It implies that that is someone that is like a master craftsman, and it's just not true. The FMB is another paid service. It's another paid database like Checker Trade, like Rated People, like all of these other portals. And that's me not odds in these portals. I think they're all great lead generation database sites. FMB is just another one of them. Don't be tricked into thinking that this is some sort of stamp of quality just because it's called what it's called. The Federation of Master Builders implies something different, in my opinion. You can pull decent contracts from them with terms and conditions. You're quite right, Dave. I actually used to use one of their contract templates in my training back in the early days when I first set it up, until I realised that like JCT is much more comprehensive and user friendly. Huss, I guess in your comments there are around what's happening inside when we get a contractor, around what we're looking for. So reviews, behavior, bravado, and demand for detail. I fucking love that. Like, we can work together 100%. Like, I love that. Bravado, definitely we want someone that's confident, want someone that knows what they're talking about, got a bit of character, a bit of personality, something about them. And a demand for detail, that is me. Like, I do that. Absolutely critical thing with I have a little mantra: without any detail, you haven't got any detail. Like, who goes into a project without detail? Like, that would be fucking mental. That would be just like going into a travel agent and asking for a holiday and then them sending you off somewhere. You think you're going to Cape Verde and you end up on a fucking bus to Skeggy. Like, no one wants that. How are builders at risk with no deposit? If you get the client to buy the gear, then weekly payments. Good question. Let me just explore that a little bit further, mate. How are builders at risk with no deposit if you get the so if you get the client to buy the materials and then give weekly payments, how are builders at risk? The only one I can think of, mate, and I'm sure if anybody else can think of any others, then do drop them into the comments, is the whole time in diary thing. So if I was a sole trader, when I say a sole trader, I mean a one-man band. If it's just me operating my business and I'm going to book, let's say I'm a plasterer, and I'm going to get the client to buy the gear, and the client says to me, I want you to start next Thursday, and I don't take a deposit, and it's a week's job. Wednesday night, I get my van loaded up and I'm ready, and I jump in the front of my van, I'm ready to go, and I get a text that night. My budgie's died, I'm going to have to cancel the job. And this happens. I know that this happens. And once again, I'm not generalizing, and I'm not saying that this happens to everybody. Of course, this is, in my experience, a rare occasion, but it does happen. But you asked what the risk was, and this is what it is. So the Thursday, before you're due to start Thursday morning, potentially now, Thursday's a really shit day to get a job cancelled. Like Wednesday night, you've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Let's say you're a plasterer on 200 a day. You've now just lost £1,000. Because you didn't take a deposit, you've now got to go find £1,000's worth of work. That particular tradesman might need that £1,000 to feed his family, pay his mortgage, whatever that might be. But you asked what the risk was, and that's what the risk is, in my opinion. I've agreed with you on a small booking fee. You now have me there. I'm not trying to have you, mate. I'm just offering you an alternate view, an alternate perspective, because it's very easy to say, and I've been as bullheaded as what you are, mate. It's very easy to say, do not do this. Like, I've heard your message, do not ever pay a builder up front. And in full, I agree with you. But don't pay a builder a deposit. That was the old mantra I heard you say. And you've also heard me say, you should always pay a deposit, blah, 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 because that's where I was coming from at the time. But as I've grown as a human being, as I've grown as a businessman, I'm okay with sitting here now and talking about this more openly, and talking about this with a more pragmatic, open, honest, and real approach. looking at alternate perspectives, looking at different people's opinions. And I'm loving the comments and the chat that's coming in over. You can't see it on TikTok. I'm over on Facebook on this screen. And there's some real good comments coming in of what people do and how they approach it. And what that tells me is that there is a situation and there is a demand and people are happy to pay deposits, but not huge ones, which is where I do agree with you. No person should be asking for tens of thousands of pounds for a deposit, regardless of fucking size of the job. That's my opinion. So if you're getting a contractor, and they're wanting a 50k deposit, like for me, that's like, why the fuck do you need 50 grand up front? Like, there is absolutely no need for that, in my opinion. Some people might be happy to pay that, and that's okay too. Again, I'm here to just discuss it, not to odds it and say, yes, this is how you do it and this is not how you do it. Good to know, mate, about JCT. I've been in the trade 26 years. Fucking hell, fair play, Dave. So I didn't want the stamp off Checkatrade. Didn't realise the FMB was similar. Yeah, they are, mate. Yeah. There's loads of them, actually. You've got My Other, you've got Rated People, you've got Checkatrade. This is not me promoting them, by the way. These are just the ones I know of. Trusted Trader. There's one called Bark or something like that. Bark or Barking or Barter or something like that. That's another site where clients can advertise opportunities for builders to tender against. That was very technical language for what it actually is. They put a job up and you go, yeah, they give them a price for it. Are you aware of any deposit protection schemes for trades or customers? Oliver, I'm not. Somebody's asked that further up into the chat. There is a service that banks offer called escrow. I don't know how it works. I don't know any providers that do it, but I think it's a good thing. I know that deposit protection schemes work for tenants in rented properties, so I don't see why it shouldn't work for building work. It's the same principle. I do know that, in fact, I do know of one. So some guy sold me it was a finance option for clients. I can't remember the name of the company. Fucking Parrot or something like that. Parrot Finance, that rings a bell. I could be wrong, totally wrong. And what happened with that was the client would apply for the funding for the job. Let's say it was a 100k job. And the client would apply to this finance company 100 grand. And then that means the finance company then were the ones that paid me. And they would inspect my work on. I never went ahead with it, so I don't know how it would work, but this was the theory. They would then pay me on stage payments whilst the client's paying them back in a private loan arrangement independent from the project. So they became like a intermediary third party, a bit like a contract administrator, a bit like valuation process where they come and go, yeah, you've delivered X amount of work, there's your money. I can't remember what the fucking company was called. Paragon, that don't ring a bell either. I'm sure it was Parrot or something like that. We've worked with them for 6 years and always won jobs. Yeah, great. I'm guessing you're talking about Estimators Online. Yeah. We've worked with them for 6 years and they said Estimators Online were significantly more, which is strange. And well, you don't know that what they've said about them is true as well, because it's easy for your customer to blame a third party to you rather than actually tell you the truth. There's so much psychology to this. It's crazy. I'm trying to like one-way conversation here with a text. It would be good to do it on a head-to-head live. Paragon, I've got any more on over here? Nope. Okay, let me get into the next one on this list. I'll do one more and then I'll wrap it up. I've been on an hour now. Getting a sore throat. Adele says, payments are to be mapped out with a cash flow statement showing the client and the bill team where they're at all times. Love that. Usually the deposit then puts the payments back into line at the next payment drawdown from the facility. Love that. They then decide if they want to advance them again or the builder works in arrears. Love that. Just clear communication and respect both ways. Yeah, that's great. No one wants a client cancelling or not paying, and no one wants a builder walking off with advance payments. Like, what a pragmatic feedback that piece of feedback that is. It's fantastic. what a great approach. I'd work for a customer like that all the live long day, like someone that's open, being open, real, and honest about how they deliver projects like that. I think that's great. What we got? Really interesting. Thanks, Paul. Did you not proceed with Parrot because you didn't win the job or didn't feel comfortable with it? I must be Parrot then. I think it was a phase, if I remember right. I think they wanted like $2,000 for the setup, and then I'm going back some years now. It was to do with, I think the interest rate that the client paid made it like really expensive for the client, and it was my opinion at the time, which was probably wrong, that no one would apply for finance when the APR was so high. That's how I remember it. And I think they sold it to me originally on a 0% funding option for customers that never became a thing. It's just called trust, which may require vetting of a customer. So this is from a builder, Steve. It must require vetting from a customer. All business is exposed to risk. What a fucking great point. And I think we've got to really accept that as well. I totally see your point, but too many deposits are way above the actual outlay. Another great point. And too many rogue traders take deposits and then disappear. That's the bit I'm not comfortable with. There's not too many rogue traders that take deposits and disappear. There's too many fucking stories and reports of rogue traders taking deposits and running away. That's the difference. Because we're never going to hear about the good stuff. We'll never hear. In this small village where I'm sat right now in Lincolnshire, there's a village down the road here. I bet there's only 300 houses in the village. And I bet there's 10, 15 scaffolds up in that village. Like, they're all going to go well. I know that because I know the builders that are doing them. And they're different builders. Now, they'll all go well, but no one will ever hear about that. And imagine in the city at large, there's thousands of projects going off right now. Thousands. And there'll be one customer that somewhere, unfortunately, gets had over. And that's the story that we hear. And this is the problem. The problem is not, to quote once again, there are too many rogue traders that take deposits and then disappear. That's not true. There's too many stories and reports of rogue traders taking deposits and disappearing, and not enough stories of bona fide contractors and genuine builders that take deposits and deliver an amazing job and amazing service. Like, we don't hear good news, do we? We just hear the shit. If it was that rife, someone would step in and do something about it, like formally. That's my opinion anyway. Great live, great advice and overview. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. Josh, I always take a deposit for works and I purchase materials with it. If they cancel, I return it with 30% lost, as that's what I lose returning it. Josh, I love it, mate. I love your openness and willingness to share that. My deposits only ever cover materials too, and that's it. Yeah. I'm getting a sore throat now, so I'm going to jump off. If you do watch this back on a replay, do hashtag replay in the comments. That would be amazing.